ain't gonna hide. Pop and get is willing, but it won't touch me. Only love around, that's how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In our heart of the struggle, we dare to dream. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track.
Another Queen Ahmadiyyah production.
Haze on the corner, they talking real loud. Spreading on light, trying to bring me down. Enemies lurking, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. Got my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Pop and get is willing, but it won't touch me. Only love around, that's how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In our heart of the struggle, we dare to dream. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. Haze on the corner, they talking real loud. Spreading on light, trying to bring me down. Enemies lurking, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. Got my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Pop and get is willing, but it won't touch me. Only love around, that's how it's gonna be. Keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city lights where dreams collide, we hustle through the night, fire in our stride. Whispers in the dark can't dim my glow. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules in this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In our heart of the struggle, we dare to dream.
All right. Hello, everyone. Grand Rising. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Okay, so I got a late start today, guys. All right, I was trying to wait until the nefarious landscapers were done. Okay, because I thought they were coming tomorrow. They usually come on Tuesday, but they showed up today. And then right when I thought they were done, they came back and started doing more. Okay, so clearly they're doing too much. So hopefully you won't hear them. All right, but I love the work they do. Okay, so that all being said, let's get into it. Everybody hit that like button. Also, if you have not been receiving the notifications, please be sure to double check and make sure that you're still subscribed, because sometimes people become mysteriously unsubscribed. And also, people actually get subscribed to other people's channels that you haven't even subscribed to. It's really a thing, okay? What if my moderators told me that happened to them and then the same thing happened to me? Okay, so that's because they push some channels and then hold some back. Okay, so with that all being said, let's get ready to get into it. Before we do, let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
All right, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay, D Major said the landscapers wanted an early start, Queen. I guess they did, beloved. All right, I guess they did. Okay, so that all being said, Didi in Dallas says, yes, that red always looks good on you, Queen. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate your kind words. Okay, so shout out to Vince I Am. All right, from the UK. Vince I Am, I literally thought you had quit. Okay, I don't remember what's the last time I see you. Did you think you could run off because I was going to New York for over a month? All right, glad to see you back in the chat, and I thought I was going to have to take a trip to the UK. All right. Reppin' Magazine is here. LeVar P is back in the house. Latasha. All right. Buckhorse D, C's Nefarious Self, Junior, Rye. Okay. Deronda. Okay. OG Patrice. All right. Let's get into it. Everybody hit that like button. My aunt Egypt, Latasha, retired federal police officer Carol Banks. Pink Envy is here. All right. Kaylee P. Air is in the house. Reggie. All right. Desmond, my chief moderator. T is in the house. We the people. Clinton. Okay. Shout out to everybody tune into the Queen, all of my loyal royals in the chat, all right, and everybody watching. And a big shout out, hey, no more drama, and a big shout out to my moderators putting in work. I see you there, Crazy Beach Aries and Juju B. Okay, so let's get this party started. Because I actually had a myriad of things I want to talk to you all about. I can't say them all in one live, so I have to do separate lives. I wanted to talk to you all about Nasty Grace and how she was going in so hard at the paint on Diddy. You would actually think, if you didn't know any better, that Diddy did something specifically to her or someone that she knows. I mean, she's going in so hard in the paint. It's really crazy. I may have to come back around 6 and talk about that, okay? Because, I mean, she is doing the most. And so is Ashley Banfield, but specifically Miss Nasty Grace, okay? And then, but what I want to do today is I want to talk about some cases that I researched a couple of days ago, because the judge said for the defense and the prosecution to come back with examples of first offenders convicted under the Mann Act. Now, which way is the judge going to go? Now, some people are saying that because the judge denied Diddy bail, that this is not a good sign. That means that basically he still thinks Diddy is a danger to the community, society as a whole, and specifically to the victims, and that Diddy may not get a light sentence due to that. And to that, I say this. At the end of the day, Diddy was not convicted of domestic violence. Okay, that's what he wasn't. And I want you all to pay attention because I've said this before and I'm going to say it again because some people just they keep letting it go over their heads. You see, when I hear people complaining about the sentence and saying that, oh, the jurors got it wrong. Well, it's easy to say and speculate that the jurors or accuse the jurors of getting it wrong when they didn't rule in your favor, when they didn't go the way you wanted them to go. It's easy for anyone to say that as their excuse. You see, because people tend to make excuses when they don't get their way. Rather than thinking about the facts of the matter, rather than looking at it logically, okay, rather than using common sense and critical thinking skills, what they like to do because they're all in their feelings and their emotions and they're butthurt and bent out of shape. So they'll just call names, say nasty things about the people who, let them down or upset them by not having the same viewpoint as they do. With that all being said, I find it interesting because the jury absolutely got it right. And we all know that no matter how you slice it, the bottom line is the prosecution could not prove the racketeering and the edge trafficking. With that being said, you see the only talking points that these idiots have, because they're the idiots, not the jurors. The jurors were smart, educated people from various backgrounds, different ages, okay, made up of women and men. But what I notice about people like Nasty Grace, Ashley Banfield, and others whose name I shan't mention, at the end of the day, they all spew the same vitriol and have the same talking points, and they're all, in my opinion, just not that smart. You see, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, the only thing they keep pointing out is that, oh, Diddy is violent. He beat those women. We all saw the video. Yes, we did. But he wasn't on trial for the video. And what I want to say about that is this. These people are only upset because once they saw the video in their little fractured minds, they absolutely thought that everybody on the jury, all 12, okay, including the alternates as well, I'm sure they thought that these people would all see that video, and no matter what the evidence showed, no matter what testimony was given, whether it was truthful or they were filled with lies, They simply thought and hoped that the jurors would be so scatterbrained just like themselves and biased just like them and nonsensical just like them and judgmental just like them and find Diddy guilty because we all saw the video. That's what they wanted. And you see, let me tell you all something. That's very dangerous. That is very dangerous because that's not what he was on trial for. And in fact, I told you all before the trial even started, when Mark Agnifilo and Diddy's other defense attorneys basically filed a motion in limine to have that video not be allowed to be entered in as evidence for the prosecution. Maureen Comey, Bigfoot herself, what she did is found a crafty little way to get that prejudicial video put in as evidence anyway by trying to tie it to S trafficking. But guess what? There was no S trafficking. Okay? Acquitted of S trafficking. So that video should never have been entered in as evidence in the first place. But you see, Maureen Comey was hoping that the jurors, just like Nasty Grace, Ashley Banfield, and someone whose name I shan't mention, at the end of the day, was hoping the same thing they were all hoping, that the jury would look at that and determine Diddy's fate based not on evidence that they will present, because they didn't really have a lot of good evidence. They talked about baby oil and Astroglide for days and weeks. They kept bringing that in. Okay, they kept talking about freak-offs and dirty rooms with towels and people watching people do the do. And then they showed those 9 videos that Cassie, the supposed victim of the supposed S trafficking, that she had stored on her own devices for at least 6 or 7 years, probably a lot longer than that. Now, why would you keep something? And I asked you all this before months ago, even prior to the trial. I asked you, why would someone who's so traumatized, so victimized, and so sweet and innocent, and clearly who was so afraid of Diddy and had such an awful experience the 11 years that she was with him, why would she keep those videos? Were they memoirs? Were they, things that she just stashed away to remember the good old days or the bad days? I have several questions, because if you're traumatized, I would think that you would not want to ever think about the things that traumatized you ever again. You would not want to speak on them, and you definitely would not want to have in your own possession videos, images, pictures, audio of any of the things that went on when you were being violated. I never could understand that. Can any of you? I would like to ask you, Nasty Grace, Ashley Banfield, and the other person whose name I shan't mention, and I don't have to mention it ever again, in fact, because everyone else is mentioning that name and talking about all the lies. At the end of the day, I'd like to ask all 3 of them, can y'all please tell us why the hell Cassie kept all 9 of those videos? And here's another thing I'd like to say. At the end of the day, I really don't think that Cassie was so traumatized as they would like for us to think that she was. Because there's no way in hell I'd have kept those videos. And now Rice says she needed them for evidence against him. Well, that's interesting. Some would say that. But so you mean to tell me that she knew 6 or 7 years ago she was going to sue Diddy? She knew she was going to sue him 6 or 7 years ago. Maybe she did. The question becomes, if she knew 6 or 7 years ago that she was going to eventually sue Diddy to get cash, why didn't she ever go to the police? If she was planning, because here's the thing. People want to say that she was so afraid of Diddy. She was scared for her life. That's why she never went to the police. So you mean to tell me that you think Little Miss Cassie kept all that video footage because she was going to one day sue Diddy? Well, if she was thinking that far ahead, do you think she was really scared of Diddy? Do you think she was really scared of Diddy? And here's the thing. Did she literally have to keep it on her devices? There's nowhere else she could have stored it. She couldn't have sent it to her mother or someone else and had them keep it so that it wasn't in her own possession, so she didn't have to think about it? Of course she could. So I don't think that's the reason at all. I don't think that's the reason at all. You see, when it comes to things like this, what I like to do is exercise critical thinking skills. Because that's when you can really start putting the pieces of the puzzle together and connecting all of the dots. You see, the reason Cassie kept those things, in my opinion, is because they were memoirs. Yeah, that's what they were. She said on the stand when she was asked, "Do you still love Mr. Combs?" She said, and I quote, "I love what we had." I loved our time together, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. But she said something along those lines. But how could you love your past with this man? How could you love what you had with this man when you claim that from day one he was grooming you? That's what she said, not literally in that term, but she basically said he was her first adult relationship, even though we know that's not true. She said he taught her how to give fellatio, even though I absolutely don't believe that's true. She said these things. She basically acted as if he's the one that turned her out. And he made her do these freak offs that she didn't want to do, that she hated, that she was sick and tired of, and that he held things over her head. Everything she said about him, most of it, about 97% of it, was bad. So my question is, what about that is there for you to love? But if you do love what you had, that's why you'd keep those videos. Okay? That's why you would do that. Okay, so please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, because the landscapers are getting on my nerves right at this moment, still making noise, I'm going to play a video for you guys so that I can actually mute my audio. And hopefully they'll be done by the video's end, or almost done. So what I want to talk about here, I want you all to see this video. Let me see where it is. I want you all to see this video where they say legal experts claim that the jury got the Diddy verdict wrong. Now, with that being said, this is a clip from someone by the name of Class E. Shout out to him. And I was like, where did he get this clip from with all these people talking? But then I realized it was from a TMZ show. Okay, so I'm going to play his video, but I am going to put an overlay on the screen because I don't have permission to use it. And then I also want you all to hear what Epstein's attorney had to say. Okay, so likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Thank you in advance. Let me put an overlay over this real quick. And by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, this person right here, that's not Diddy. Okay, I believe this man is Haitian, and I like to call him Diddy's doppelganger because they do look alike, but Diddy looks better than him. That's not the same person. Okay, so now with that, and I've said that before, but just in case you missed it. Okay, so here we go.
Edged in this that the jury got it wrong. You guys heard from Nancy Grace in videos that we've covered, and she says the jury was just wrong. She said they don't understand. Ashley said the same thing. They don't understand the jury. They didn't get it when it comes to this Diddy trial and the Diddy verdict. Well, now there's going to be a back and forth. We're going to have a conversation about, did the jury actually get it wrong? I believe they got it right. You guys have seen the videos we've done here. You saw us covering the trial live and saw the reasons why. Let's see what the legal experts have to say.
Yeah, I mean, Ashley, Nancy is committed to this position that this jury got it wrong. I want to hear from you. These are 12 people, and from the jury questionnaire, I haven't talked to any of them, but they seem reasonably smart to very smart, actually, and diverse. And I think that's a point. There are men and women, mixed races, yet it seems like in an hour they corralled 11 onto one side. That's the way it feels to me, based on what we now know. Yeah. How could 11 people with that kind of diversity, who seem reasonably smart, get it so wrong the way you're kind of describing?
Yeah, I got you. I will say this about jury verdicts and court resolution. Just because one side of the courtroom doesn't like the outcome doesn't mean that there wasn't justice. Sometimes justice doesn't look great. So I will never say that justice wasn't done. I will say I disagreed with what the jury found. I was able to look very clearly and see the evidence matching up with the jury instructions and the verdict form. Joe, don't interrupt me because I know you're going to tell me I'm wrong, but I'm just going to tell you how I feel, my dear.
Tell her she's wrong,
and that
Joe.
is that I think there might be a generational issue here. I'm trying to remember the ages of everybody on the jury, but I know
No, they were older. Stop it. Shout out to my guy, the lead attorney. The lead attorney did a video on this. And guess what the lead attorney said? The lead attorney said, before we found out what the jury makeup was going to be, he said, if the jury looks like this, and this, and this, it's not going to be good for Diddy. Well, the lead attorney unknowingly actually predicted what the jury was going to look like. And the majority of the jury is exactly what the lead attorney said he didn't want. Now, with that being said, the lead attorney was someone with all that experience, said it's not going to be good for Diddy because of the nature of this case. Then you see the case play out. The evidence is presented. This jury that wasn't an ideal jury looks at everything and still says, this man's not guilty of RICO. This man is not guilty of trafficking. So knowing all of that, now we have Ashley who is looking at the jury and saying, I think it's a generational issue. You think 50-year-olds were out there having freak-offs? If it were a younger generation, I could see them being like, hey man, you got to do what you got to do, Diddy. I ain't mad at it. So what do you want? You want some 70, 80-year-old on the jury? I don't know. What is she looking for here?
there are many of them who are older, and I think they're of a different mindset about women and what women are expected to do.
Look at this. 31, 39, 68, 57, 30, 42, 69, 51, 68, 67, 43, 74. These 67-year-olds, it's not like they were born. This is such a dumb take.
You know, it's really insulting to the jurors for people to act as though these people were so mentally incompetent that they couldn't think for themselves. Because what Ashley is trying to say basically is that these men on the jury who were older somehow persuaded the others, specifically that the men persuaded the women. You know, that is real ignorant. And at the same time, it's also hypocritical because you know why? She wants to say that they were basically persuaded and did what they probably wouldn't have just done had they not been talked into it somehow or pressured. But isn't that exactly what she wishes had happened? She really would have loved it if they had been persuaded by that video of Diddy brutalizing Cassie to find him guilty of RICO and S trafficking, when in fact, that's not what the video was even about. And here's another thing I want to bring up too. You know, Diddy is addicted or was addicted to illegal substances. So was Cassie. Did they ever stop to think that maybe Diddy was a victim himself? Because I find it interesting. You see, let's talk about this for a second, because this just goes to show the racial components. Okay, let me just tell you why. You all notice how in so many different things that happen, they don't have empathy and sympathy for Black people? When you think about people like the young woman Centoya Brown, who fought and escaped her predatory trafficker, she took his life in doing so. And then she was sent to prison and viewed as, you know, someone who just did something vile to somebody, even though this man was torturing her, doing all sorts of nefarious things to her. But if that happens to a white woman, they're deemed as a survivor. They fled their captor. They took him out and ran and got away to safety. That's what they say. While the Black women, the young Black women who these things happen to, teenagers, they're viewed as just simply prostitutes, streetwalkers, runaways who did anything and everything they could to get by. And no one shows empathy and sympathy for them. And also, when we have these mass shooters, these school shooters, ever notice how they say, oh, they had diminished capacity, they're incompetent to stand trial, they have mental health issues? You don't think that a person addicted to drugs for years may have mental health issues? You don't think that there might be something psychologically wrong with Diddy to make him behave in such a violent way? You don't think that just maybe this man had some sort of childhood trauma? Does anybody ever think about that or give him some benefit of the doubt? Now, I'm not caping for Diddy, but I'm bringing up things that I think about. And I find it interesting that people who don't look like us seldom think about those things when it comes to people who look like me. But they always want to put that at the forefront of their argument when it's somebody who looks like them. They always want to make excuses. Right now, we have Mike Jeffries, and they say that, oh, he's incompetent to stand trial. Okay? We have the guy who shot the black people in Kentucky at the Kroger. And we know he did it because they were black, because when he was encountered by another white man who had a gun just like him, he told that white man, if you don't shoot me, I won't shoot you. Whites don't kill whites. But they say he's incompetent to stand trial. And that happened how many years ago? And he still hasn't faced trial yet. When we look at the young man who stabbed the Mexican teenager at his school, stabbed him about 5 times, and he brought that knife to school. He came there was premeditated murder. And he stabbed him in his carotid artery, in his heart, in his lungs. He stabbed him literally in vital organs. Like he had rehearsed it, researched it, knew exactly what to do. And what is he looking at? Possibly 6 months to 2 years, while Carmelo Anthony, who stabbed a bully, and there were 2 of them, and he stabbed one and took their life, and unfortunately so. But at the end of the day, they want to deem him as some thug and charge him with premeditated murder. He didn't lay in wait. He didn't sit down and methodically plan and plot this out. He was minding his own black business when he was approached with violence. But that's not how they tell the story. I want you all to pay attention and think about the excuses they make for their people. And when they condemn our people and don't give them any benefit of the doubt and don't care whether they actually had mental health issues or not. Did they ever stop to think that because of Diddy's illegal substance use and the addiction that he had, that just maybe he suffered from diminished capacity? Did they ever stop to think about that? Of course not. Because they don't care. Because Diddy's a black man that they want to take down. That's what that is. Mark Agnifilo wasn't lying when he said this was racially motivated. Y'all don't think that it is, whether you like Diddy or not, whether you think Diddy's done dirt to anybody ever or not. You can't deny, even D.L. Hughley, who called those of us who celebrated, what did he call us? Morally bankrupt. But even he himself said that you can't deny the racial bias that existed in this case. Okay? So I want you all to think about that. Now, they're going so hard in on the paint on Diddy, but they never even thought about maybe the fact that he was doing all of those illegal substances somehow affected his cognitive abilities and his decision-making abilities. Because even Cassie said on the stand, and others said as well, that when he wasn't doing illegal substances, he was an entirely different person. They also didn't talk much about, if at all, I don't remember them talking about Cassie being violent. Now, of course, she's no match for Diddy, but I'm making a point here. Cassie may also have been violent and toxic because of her addiction. You see, they both were victims of their drug use. And, let's think about this for a second and go even a little deeper. Because when we talk about the opioid crisis, which mostly impacts people who don't look like me, they say that it's a disease. It's a health issue. Isn't that what they say? But they didn't say that about crack when it was mostly people who looked like me who were addicted to crack that the CIA supposedly put in our communities, mind you. But didn't they say when the opioid crisis started that this is a health issue? That these people have a disease? So they don't think Diddy has a disease about his addiction? They don't think that it's impacted the way he thinks and views things? Okay, let's look at something. Hold on. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Let me let you all keep listening to him, to this video, while I pull up something real quick. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Honey, we're going to go into it today. Okay, because I don't really care what anybody thinks at this point. I don't care if you think that, oh, she's just taking up for Diddy. I don't care what anybody thinks. Because the bottom line is, no matter what you think, the truth is the truth all day, every day, and twice on Sundays. And this country is filled with racial bias. And we know that in the criminal justice system, which is run in some cases by criminals themselves, as far as I'm concerned, and y'all know it, at the end of the day, they really don't have empathy and sympathy for people who look like me. Okay, so please pay attention.
Hope Joe cooks this lady.
Would not do. I'm sad that
Look
the
at this.
prosecutor's closing, where they said,
But there
You
are
need to
women on the jury,
understand
Ashley.
that
You can't ignore that there were 4 women on the jury, and they all
I'm not
voted the
talking about
same
women.
way.
I'm talking about generations. Generational.
Well, one
It's
is 30.
different.
Jury was
One is
40 or under.
30.
It goes
One is
30
Majority
to
of
70.
Harvey,
It's a
One
half
is.
the jury
stupid
was
take.
40 or under. Half the jury was 40 or under. 2 in there,
Okay.
41, 42,
What
and the
I'd
rest
like
in their
to tell
30s.
you is that when there is a different generation and they're very
What?
persuasive, many of the younger generation follow along with that as well until they don't. I brought up the example earlier that it's been within my lifetime, Nancy, it's been within your lifetime that you couldn't rape your wife. Legally, you couldn't rape your wife. You used to be able to beat your wife with a switch as long as it wasn't thicker than your thumb, rule of thumb, little known fact.
Nice.
So we evolve. We evolve as a society to realize, oh, you can rape prostitutes. Oh my God, I didn't know you could rape prostitutes. You can. You can rape prostitutes and you can rape your wife, and it is illegal. But in my lifetime, nobody thought that early on, and we have evolved. I believe that we eventually will evolve to realize
is
you
such
can
a
sex
bad
traffic
take.
your girlfriend. She can say no at some point, and then
Guys, oh my God. Do you hear this? I'm not going to go into feminism and my body, my choice thing. Guys, this is a woman who is going to be talking to the next generation about this. Do you hear what she just said?
You know, I really did not really ever consider Ashley as a Karen, but that's exactly what she sounds like. Now, let me just say this. As I was telling you all about Diddy's use of illegal substances, here's what they say. Some common serious mental disorders associated with chronic drug abuse. I already slipped up and said the word, but anyway, includes schizophrenia. Okay, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, manic depression, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is ADHD, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, post traumatic stress disorder, panic disorder, and antisocial personality. Now, if you ask me, I'm no psychologist, but I have studied psychologists. But I always felt like when hearing these things about Diddy and his violence, and specifically after seeing that video, I felt like Diddy may be someone who actually has bipolar disorder. Because with a bipolar person, you absolutely will get a good side and sometimes a bad side, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They say Bobby Brown has that disorder. And Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston both engaged in violence with one another. We just didn't physically see it or visibly see it all of the time, but didn't Whitney talk about it? Okay, at the end of the day. Also, here's another question. Can long-time drug use with a D cause mental illness? Substance use can contribute to the development of mental disorders and even make them worse. Substance use can lead to changes in some of the brain areas that are disrupted in other mental disorders, such as schizophrenia, anxiety, mood, or impulse control disorders. Okay? Can it ruin the mental health? Drug use can make you more unwell and more likely to try and harm yourself or others and even take yourself out. There is also some evidence that using some drugs may cause mental illness for the first time. For example, research has shown that some illegal substances increase your chances of developing psychosis or a psychotic disorder. Okay, so this is what I want you all to think about, because had this not been a black man, you all don't think that they would have said something about that. You don't think they would have said something about that. I want you all to pay attention, okay? Because this is just so crazy that they have so much vitriol for Diddy, but they didn't have any for Hugh Hefner or Elvis, okay? Or Jerry Lee Lewis. All right, Christopher says the Queen has given us all the correct information and reasonable analysis. Thank you, beloved. Okay? Thank you. Prayer Closet says, whenever I come to this channel, I come with my pen and legal pad because Queen is always dropping facts, knowledge, and wisdom. I have learned so much from her. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate your kind words. Peace, love, and blessings. And then Miss Sheila says, there's a reason why the Bible says to be sober-minded. Okay, the Most High always gives us direction. Exactly. Okay. Reggie says, yes, I agree. They don't give us the benefit of the doubt. Exactly. But let's finish listening to what Ashley has to say, and then I'm going to let you guys hear what Nasty Grace had to say, and then we're going to get into these cases because the judge wants examples of cases where someone was convicted of the Mann Act and they were a first offender. And I have a myriad of cases that I've looked up, some with short sentences, some with lengthy. But I'm going to give you the details of each of the cases. And then we're going to see, or we're going to discuss what we think may happen in Diddy's case. Okay, so let's continue.
If you're a dude and you're a single guy out there, hey, good luck.
This is you trying to book a trip on your business travel platform. And this is me using Navan.
Good luck. I'm going to rewind this again, and I want the fellas to listen specifically to what this woman is saying she believes. Listen very carefully, guys.
You couldn't rape your wife. You used to be able to beat your wife with a switch as long as it wasn't thicker than your thumb. Rule of thumb, little known fact. So we evolve. We evolve as a society to realize, oh, you can rape prostitutes. Oh my God, I didn't know you could rape prostitutes. You can. You can rape prostitutes and you can rape your wife, and it is illegal. But in my lifetime, nobody thought that early on, and we have evolved. I believe that we eventually will evolve to realize you can sex traffic your girlfriend. She can say no at some point, and then it actually is illegal that one time. Even if she said yes 6 times before.
Oh my God. She can't say no at some point, even if she said yes 6 times before. I'm not going to argue the law. I'm not going to argue consent, because consent is an absolute disaster when it comes to the legal field. Fellas, if you are listening to this,
prostitutes and you can rape your wife, and it is illegal. But in my lifetime, nobody thought that early on, and we have evolved. I believe that we eventually will evolve to realize you can sex traffic your girlfriend. She can say no at some point, and then it actually is illegal that one time. Even if she said yes 6 times before, 8 times, 20 times before.
The jury kind of, because Maureen Comey brought that up in her closing argument. She said just consent is not forever. But it seems like the jury, it at least created that doubt that Joe was talking about in their mind, that there were so many times that they did consent. And the other part of this is that that video that they saw, the freak-off videos, probably had a really big impact on them.
Totally,
that
Charles.
It was hard for them to say that these were not people who were willing participants, and who were also, I think, certainly in the case of Jane, it hurt with the jury that she is still getting compensation from Diddy. That
I think it's the Bill Maher effect. Okay, I really do. I think it's the Bill Maher effect. It behooves you, ladies, to move along and just get on out of that I don't think a lot of people understand yet. They are starting to. More people will. And as we evolve as a society, I believe more people will understand that. But I don't think it behooves Cassie to move along, sister, because he chases her down when she goes to parties and brings her back by the hair. So, and then he goes after her parents and tells her parents, give me 20,000 or else, these sorts of things. So I just feel like, I think generationally, there are those of a certain generation who still believe that you can't traffic your girlfriend. And I think that as we move along in society, we will start to realize you really can, and that it doesn't behoove the women to move along. These are crimes being committed against them.
Final thing.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's saying that. I don't think most people believe that you can't traffic your girlfriend, or that you can't SA your wife. But if we start to go down this path, and we talk about consent, and as Charles said, you talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. We want to talk about Diddy's patterns. Can we talk about Cassie's patterns? If you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then on the 9th time, you're like, oh no. No is no, guys, right? What? It's dangerous for guys.
There are people certainly on the defense that say this was a targeted prosecution. They were going after a celebrity. They were going after a black man. Mark Agnifilo has said all of that. Is there a chance Donald Trump is going to pardon Diddy?
Look at Joe
Want me to take
laughing.
that one?
Why would you ever
Sure.
say no?
Bad idea.
You know him, Joe. You represented
I
him.
do. Yep. And I know him well. And look, he will take anything under. But here's the one thing about Donald Trump. Now, President Trump has been through the ringer. Okay, with these
that would be interesting.
prosecutions that were politically motivated. He understands that. So he will never say never to anything. Based
I don't
on
think he
Diddy's
will.
last comments about Donald Trump before this trial, I'm not thinking he's going to get a pardon on those 2 counts.
But Joe, Snoop Dogg said some really awful things about Donald Trump once, and then he was performing at his inauguration. So
Well, Snoop Dogg was a born again. But
There's no upside.
maybe Diddy will be born again.
There's no upside for Donald
don't
Trump
see
on
it.
this one. I don't see what the upside is. What does he get out of it?
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Trump doesn't.
Yeah.
There's no
Pound of
get
flesh.
Diddy's loyalty.
Pound of flesh.
Trump will do what he wants to do when he.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop it right there. I'm gonna stop right there. Now Reggie says, I've got leg cramps. Anyone got a home remedy? Well, Reggie, the best thing to do for leg cramps, beloved, is get up and walk it out. That's what you have to do. When you have leg cramps, when you have cramps in any muscle, it's best to start using that muscle. That's the best way to alleviate cramps. So if your legs are cramping, beloved, just get up and walk it out. Just keep walking, and that's going to make it go away quicker than anything else. I promise you. Okay? Now, I'll send you an invoice in the mail. All right? Please pay attention. I need my coins, Reggie. I need my coins. I'm out here healing y'all and everything else all at once. Okay? My business said that attorney, hold on, this chat's moving quick, said that attorney sounds like a mafia boss's lawyer. That's ASAP Rocky's attorney. And listen, you all, and Danny says pickle juice. Okay, that's a new one for me. Okay, Queen Sam said, not an invoice, Queen. Yes, okay, I need my coins, y'all. No, but seriously, listen, that is ASAP Rocky's attorney, Joe Tacopina. But one thing about it is he went in on Nasty Grace on that show. He went in on her. She thinks she knows so much. I should have shown you all the scowl on her face. That is one ugly ass Karen. And I think that's why she's so angry. Because if I look like her, I'd be angry all day, every day, and twice on Sundays. That's just facts. Now, with that being said, let's listen to what she had to say about it. Okay? Let's listen to what she had to say about it. I'm going to play this audio because I recorded it straight from the telly when I was listening to it last night. Hold on. Because at first I was like, where did he get that clip from? And then I did my little investigation and found out that it was on Tubi. Hold on, you guys. Likes up, everyone, please. Like and share. Thank you in advance. And here's the thing. As I told you all, Nancy Grace has always targeted Black men with her vitriol. It's the same woman who told all those lies and half-truths during OJ's trial and was so mad, butthurt, bent out of shape when OJ got acquitted. Okay? She had so much to say. And then also, one thing that they also mentioned on the show was that Megyn Kelly, they brought up Megyn Kelly. Now, you all remember I showed you the video of her just days ago, what she had to say about all of this with Diddy. And she vows, I want you all to pay attention, she has vowed that she will never let the world forget what Diddy did. Well, you go right ahead. I don't think the world needs her to remind us. I think people will remember anyway. But the question becomes, why didn't she have that same energy for that man that she had working with her? Okay, that was accused of assault that she didn't even want to admit to. Okay, that she skirted right past. Okay, please pay attention. Now, here's Nasty Grace, and I'm going to play the audio of what she had to say during this broadcast. And you all may hear some background noise because Reno's in here getting his food together. Y'all, please pay attention. Okay, so here we go.
About domestic abuse. But this is something that we have been hearing a lot about for 30 years, that Stockholm Syndrome and domestic violence and lots of men going to jail and prison for it, that's been around now for a long time. So, and I'm not even challenging you on this. I'm just wondering, how could 12 people, 4 of whom are women, all unite in a case like this and be so clueless about what you're talking about?
I don't know that, but I do know this. We know about it because we're in the crime world. Regular people, and they can be brilliant, like the one juror is a PhD in microbiology or something like that. Brilliant people Okay, you can be brilliant, but if you are not familiar with criminals, if you don't understand how their mind works, that, Harvey, when you walk around Central Park and you see a little squirrel up across your path, a little rabbit maybe, you might be tempted to pet it or throw it a treat. Is your instinct to grab it and tear its neck out with your teeth? No, because you don't think like an animal. You have a conscience, or at least I think you do. So my point is, they don't think like we think. And I know everybody's going to get all crazy about this, but Combs does not care about these people. He doesn't care about the people outside the courthouse that were chanting and screaming and celebrating and squirting baby oil on each other and celebrating. They mean nothing to him. Nothing. They are pawns in his game, just like these women were. I think one thing that's important is that Sean Combs raised his hand up while his lawyer was trying to make arguments to the judge about an appeal bond, which, as you know, Harvey, because you're a lawyer, practically never happens. It's basically after you get a jury to say guilty, you go, hey, can we get out now? Can we go home now? No. But during that argument at the end of the day, and I'm pulling up a quote right now that the judge said to them, and this Combs is like, psst, psst, over here. Quote, you full-throatedly, in your closing argument, told the jury there was violence. Domestic violence is violence. You conceded that in your closing when he denied the appeal bond. So while everybody's out celebrating outside the courthouse that Sean Combs is coming home tonight, he ain't. He's going to jail. And I hope he stays there.
I got to say, Joe, that's compelling that the defense itself told the jury this guy was violent and even monstrous. I mean, that is, that's a hard thing to argue.
He is, and if the defense doesn't do that, they lose credibility. So it was the right thing to say, because there's no question what Nancy said was really moving. If he was on trial for domestic violence, and if he was on trial for being a bad person, all those things are check proven. He was on trial for racketeering, enterprise, corruption, and he's on trial for sex trafficking. Not proven, not close. 12.
Okay, so I want you all to pay attention because, like I told you guys, that these people who are so mad that Diddy got off for the racketeering and sex trafficking, they continue to talk about his violent streak, him beating women. He wasn't on trial for that, so they really make no sense. Why don't they do this? Why don't they, rather than bringing up the videotape that really he wasn't on trial for, okay, it was used to prejudice people against him, why don't they bring up the fact of how and why the government couldn't prove the racketeering and the ass trafficking? Why don't they talk about that? You see, that's what they don't want to talk about because they know the truth. They know that the reason it wasn't proven is because Cassie was complicit. They know that the reason they couldn't prove it is because Jane Doe was complicit. They don't want to bring up, they told them they couldn't talk about Cassie's STDs, but then she gets sued right after the trial for giving someone an STD. They don't want to bring up Cassie's track record of messing with this man, that man, cheating here and cheating there. They don't want to bring that up. They don't want to bring any of that up because all they want to do is go in on Diddy. So let's keep talking about his violence, okay? Just like some fool said, the jury has given us the signal that it's okay to be violent, that violence can live another day. You mean to tell me if Diddy got convicted of all 5 of those counts, that violence wouldn't live and thrive any longer? Is he the only person upon the land that's ever been violent? I find it all interesting. You know what else I find interesting? I find it interesting that the same people are going so hard in the paint on Diddy about his violence, okay? They don't have anything to say about that football player who beat the crap, okay? Who beat the living hell out of his girlfriend. Do you all remember that? Let me just pull this up real quick. He almost killed her. Choked her until she passed out. Choked her until she passed out. And when she woke up, he said, I thought you were dead. That's because he tried to kill her. But did they charge him with attempted murder? No, they didn't. His name's Chad Wheeler, former NFL offensive lineman for the Seattle Seahawks, was convicted of assault in 2024. Assault for a domestic violence incident that when he attacked his black girlfriend. They charged him with domestic assault. Why didn't they charge him with attempted murder? Nasty Grace. Why didn't you complain and raise hell about that? He tried to murder that woman. Okay. He strangled her until she lost consciousness. If that isn't attempted murder, I don't know what is. In January of 2021, while he was with the Seahawks, Wheeler brutally assaulted his girlfriend near Seattle. He strangled her unconscious, broke her arm, and left her for dead. But I don't hear any of the people, including that YouTuber who lies just to be telling lies. I don't hear her saying anything about this, nor have I ever. Definitely didn't hear her giving all this vitriol to him. If you're such a proponent for victims, this is a black woman like yourself, lady. How come you didn't say anything about that and go hard in the paint on him like you're doing Diddy? Nasty Grace, I asked you the same question, Ashley Banfield, and anyone else that is sitting up here acting like Diddy is some devil, and he just might be. But why hasn't this person been painted as a devil? Because he beat this woman a whole lot worse than Diddy ever beat Cassie. And that's on facts. Now, continues to say he left her for dead. According to prosecutors, the victim, Aaliyah Taylor, survived the attack and later testified against Wheeler. See, she didn't go file a civil suit first. She went to the police. That's what real victims do. She has stated that she is satisfied with the outcome, highlighting the rarity of a black woman receiving justice in a case involving a white NFL player. Wheeler was found guilty of first and second degree assault, domestic violence in November of 2023. In March of 2024, he was sentenced to 81 months in state prison. Following his arrest, the Seahawks released Wheeler, and he has not played in the NFL since. Okay? Yeah. With that being said, and let me just pull up the image of him and her. For anybody who doesn't know this story, because I reported on this heavily. Okay, I was going in on him, just like I went in on Diddy, okay, about that video of Cassie. Y'all know I went in about that video, but at the end of the day, that's not what Diddy was on trial for, now is it? Okay, that's him and her right there. This man tried to take her life. He still got off easy because he, like I said, he should have, in my opinion, been charged with attempted murder. Okay? I just want you all to pay attention. But a lot of these people so angry. Megyn Kelly talking about she'll never let people forget what Diddy did. Well, why doesn't she have that same energy for Chad Wheeler? Okay? Why doesn't she have that same energy? Hold on. I have questions. Why didn't the media show her pictures everywhere, every day, to constantly remind people and drill that into our heads like they did with the Cassie and Diddy video? That's what I'd like to know. Well, we really don't have to ask that question. We already know why. We already know why. You see, white men in this country are never going to be demonized and vilified like a black man who does the same or a similar crime. That's what isn't going to happen. Look at this young woman's face. They want to keep showing how Cassie looked, but they refuse to keep showing how this woman looked. Look at this. It's absolutely egregious. Do you all see that? Where's the anger for her? Cassie is a white-looking woman. Cassie has the complexion for the protection, and Cassie has pretty privilege. This is a darker-skinned black woman. Now, she's not that dark, but she is darker-skinned. And so did anybody show her half? Just a little bit, okay? Anywhere near the amount of empathy and sympathy and make the excuses for her that have been made for Cassie? No, nobody did. Many of you probably never even heard of this story if you're new to my channel, okay? Some of these same people talking slick didn't have half of that energy for this woman, okay? But I did. I highlight cases of domestic abuse for all women. But at the end of the day, what I don't do is sit up here and point out one person and single them out. Okay, specifically a man who's of my own skin tone. And then I'm not going to say anything about anybody else. And I'm going to tell you something else that I thought was interesting when I watched that TMZ report on Tubi. One thing that I thought was interesting is that Ashley Banfield brought up Peter Nygaard, or maybe it was Nasty Grace. I think it was Ashley, but literally brought up Peter Nygaard. That's the man that I told you all, the Caucasian man who did a whole lot worse than Diddy, as far as I'm concerned. And he's recently been convicted. And I said, why isn't anybody reporting on him? Because I reported on him from beginning to end. But when she brought him up, I thought that's interesting because I don't remember you talking about him and having all this vitriol that you have for Diddy. But on that show, she mentioned him briefly, but still not with the same or anywhere near the amount of disdain that she has for Diddy. I just thought that was interesting. So you all can't tell me that this isn't all racially motivated. In fact, a whole witch hunt and an attempt and an effort to bring down a powerful black man. Whether Diddy is good, bad, or indifferent, at the end of the day, what we black people need to stop doing is sitting idly by and siding with wanton supremacy when they want to take down a black person and do so without doing the same to the people who look like them. Why aren't they so angry about the Epstein list? Nasty Grace, Ashley Banfield, okay, lying YouTuber. Why aren't they raising holy hell about these people that were clients of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? And in fact, here's the thing too. One of them said, it was either Nasty Grace or Ashley, said that Epstein wasn't getting paid for trafficking those girls. Of course he was. Of course he was. Okay? He absolutely was getting paid for it. You think the clients were coming there and getting these girls and sleeping with them for free? Of course he and Ghislaine were getting paid for it. What the hell is she talking about? But I want you all to pay attention. These are the things they do and say to make excuses for their own. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't getting paid for trafficking? How did she know that? Even if it were true, where did she get the evidence from? Does she know his clients? Because the rest of us don't know who the clients are, because according to the DOJ, who's the government, they say there's no list. I want y'all to pay attention. Now, with that all being said, let's talk about these cases that the judge may look at in his determination for a sentence for Diddy. So here's the first one we're going to talk about, Chuck Berry. Okay, Chuck Berry, this was in 1962. Now, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. But remember, as I told you before, that conviction was overturned due to racial bias in the trial. Well, Diddy might be able to do the same thing because there was clearly racial bias and a whole lot of prior bad acts to boot. Okay? Now, in the second trial, he was reconvicted but received a reduced sentence of 3 years. He then served 20 months. Now, but he wasn't a first offender, so we're going to alleviate him. I don't think he was. He may have been, but I'm not sure. But here's somebody who was a first offender, okay? Mark Brenner. Now, Mark Brenner, let me pull him up on the screen. Mark Brenner, and when I say Chuck Berry I don't think he was a first offender. I think he had actually done a little something, didn't have anything to do with the Mann Act, but I think he had some other crime. But Mark Brenner was a first offender. Now, this is the man and his girlfriend at the time. Her name is Cecil Sewall. They both were the ones who were running the Emperor's Club. Okay, that nefarious prostitution ring that I told you all about. Okay, so she took a plea deal and ended up doing 6 months. Brenner was convicted and he received a sentence of 13 months in prison. And that was his first offense. He had no prior criminal record. Okay, he took acceptance of the responsibility. And, well, also he took a plea deal. Now, with that all being said, then we have Frederick Bork. Now, let's talk about him. Frederick Bork, first offender, okay? He was convicted in a foreign bribery case, okay? This case is often cited because the judge emphasized, okay, that it was his first offense and that there was a lack of personal gain. Like he didn't get any money out of it, okay? And otherwise, he led a law-abiding life. So Bork received just 1 year and 1 day in prison, despite the seriousness of his charges. It reflects the judicial discretion sometimes exercised in nonviolent white-collar or first offender cases like Mann Act charges. Then we have Jack Johnson. Now, this is the most infamous case. This was clearly racially motivated, okay? But Jack Johnson had no prior convictions. He was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day. Okay, and even though this was a politically charged case and racially motivated, the sentence was relatively light for the time. And then, of course, he was posthumously pardoned by President Trump in 2018, which I also find interesting because, Congress had literally asked Barack Obama to pardon him in 2009, and he didn't. But Trump pardoned him in 2018. With that being said, then there was Fred Toney. Now, Fred Tony was a baseball player, okay, a major league pitcher. Fred Tony pleaded guilty to transporting a woman claiming that she was his wife across state lines, a classic Mann Act violation. He received only 4 months in jail. He was a first offender. And as a public figure with no prior convictions, his clean record likely influenced the court's decision to impose a shorter sentence. He was a public figure with no prior convictions, so is Diddy. Then we have Finis Drake. Now, this person was a first-time offender. Dake, not Drake, Dake. Now, Dake transported a 16-year-old girl, a minor, across state lines for debauchery and other immoral practices. He pleaded guilty, and to avoid a harsher penalty, up to 10 years and $10,000 fine. He was sentenced to just 6 months in the House of Corrections. Okay, and then we have William Thomas. Now, this was a prominent sociologist who faced Mann Act charges, first time for offender. He was acquitted at trial, okay? So that doesn't count. Now, with that all being said, let's talk about somebody who got some harsh punishments. Well, the people who get the real harsh punishments, I noticed that they have something in common. Okay, Marcus L. Ray. Now, it was his first offense. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Now, Ray was convicted under the Mann Act and other charges for transporting minors across state lines to participate in boot camps that turned out to be exploitive. Okay? So he got 15 years, and that's likely because it was a minor. Because if you remember what I read to you days ago, that the ones who get these stiff penalties usually are, doing something with some sort of extenuating circumstances, specifically doing these to someone who's underage. And then we have a first offender by the name of Edward Bagley. Okay. And Bagley pleaded guilty to get a reduced act. Basically, he got 20 years in federal prison. Okay. 20 years. Michael Pope, first offense, got 210 years. This was in 2008. Okay. He was a former Marine convicted of traveling to Cambodia and sexually abusing girls. He got 210 years, y'all. And then we have Barry Turner, first offender, who got 10 years, convicted of transporting a woman across state lines to engage in forced prostitution. Now, with that all being said, let's talk about this pastor, because this is the case that I thought was interesting. Pastor Jack Schnapp, or Shop, I think I'm saying it right, Shop. It's SCHAAP. Now, listen to this. This was in Hammond, Indiana. Okay, the United States Attorney David Kapp announced that Jack Allen Schaap, age 55 of Crete, Illinois, was sentenced by Senior District Judge Rudy Lozano for 144 months imprisonment and 5 years of supervised release after pleading guilty to the felony offense of transportation of a minor with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. Now, according to documents filed by the government in the case, Schaap was a pastor of Hammond Baptist Church, superintendent of its schools, and a trusted advisor to the victim and her family. He involved himself with counseling the victim, who was then a 16-year-old church member who had been identified by an administrator at the school as vulnerable. Now, once their sessions began, Schaap met with her for longer durations with increasing frequency over time, beginning with a few hours per week in April and May of 2012, semi-weekly in June, and then daily or several times a day in July. Now, Schaap encouraged the victim to view him as not just her pastor, but as her friend, and finally, love interest. Schaap's phone records revealed that in 1 month's time, he and the victim spoke on the phone or texted one another approximately 662 times. Now, he also arranged to have the victim transported to Illinois and to Michigan so they could spend extended periods of time alone together. The government recovered photos taken at his property in Illinois and inside a cabin in Michigan, which depicted Schaap and the victim in intimate poses. Now, he probably got all of this time because of the age of the victim, but also because he was a pastor and supposedly a counsel and someone who had dealings with children or teenagers, at least because he also worked at the school, or he was the superintendent of the school. Now, this case resulted from an investigation by members of the Indiana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Indiana State Police as well, and the Lake County Sheriff's Department. This case was prosecuted by Assistant United States Attorney Jill Coster and Susan Collins. So 144 months, okay? That's like 12 years. Okay, that's 12 years. So in some of these cases, the judge, because remember, the judge can go by the sentencing guidelines, but also it's up to the judge's discretion. So the judge can actually give you even more than what the sentencing guidelines suggest, okay, which is usually like 10 years. Okay, so I want you all to pay attention. This is all a mess. So let me just put his picture up here on the screen. This is him right here. Looks all nice and wholesome, doesn't he? Doesn't he look all nice and wholesome, like he wouldn't do any such thing anywhere near as nefarious? But that's who that is, okay? So he got 12 years for what he did. And then also, remember the case that I talked about with the Emperor's Club? This is Governor Spitzer who was involved in that as a client. They decided and elected not to even punish him. And then this is a Black actor from back in the day named Rex Ingram, whose career suffered when he too was convicted of the Mann Act. And I believe that was also his first time. But also, let's talk about Tamika Rochelle Lewis, who was the Black woman who was involved in the Empress Club, and Mark Agnifilo was her attorney. So Mark Agnifilo will likely bring up her case. Okay. Now, I couldn't find a conclusive sentence for her, but they said that she was facing 25 years, more than the other people. Okay, but they took plea deals, mind you. But she was the one who was booking the setting everything up, okay, doing the invoices and all of that. So she was facing 25 years. Now, they said that Agnifilo was trying to get her 16 months. They don't say whether that's what she actually got. But let's look at the press conference that Agnifilo held at the time this all transpired. Likes up, everyone, please don't forget to like and share. You see, Agnifilo is not new to this. He's true to this. And this is why he did such a fantastic job, he and all of Diddy's defense team. And this is why they absolutely outdid the prosecution. The prosecution just wasn't that great, if we're just being honest.
She's not making any comment. A guilty plea by one of the women who ran the call girl ring that led to New York Governor Eliot Spitzer's fall from power.
I think it was a career choice like any other.
Tamika Lewis admitted to arranging meetings between Johns and prostitutes for the Emperor's Club VIP, an escort service.
I think the bottom line is the Emperor's Club touted itself to be halfway legitimate. And the truth was that it basically was selling sex for money.
By pleading guilty to promoting prostitution and money laundering, she faces up to 25 years in prison, but is likely to receive far less than that under federal sentencing guidelines. It remains unclear whether the former governor will face any charges for hiring prostitutes. Lewis's lawyer says she has learned her lesson and will not be in trouble again.
Her background and the fact that this is a first offense and sort of who she's been, and she's an English major from University of Virginia.
This is the first conviction in the case. 3 other people who police say ran the prostitution ring are also facing charges. Investigators say the governor was a repeat customer of the call girl service, spending thousands of dollars.
I am resigning from the office of governor.
After his rendezvous with prostitutes became public in March, Spitzer resigned. Ted Shaffrey, The Associated Press, New York.
Why did Amazon send me?
All right, so there you have that. And then there one last case. Hold on. And that pastor shop that I talked about, he was actually the pastor of a mega church, okay? But also there was a Fairborn man who got 78 months. He got a 78-month sentence for interstate transportation for the purpose of illegal sexual activity, okay? 44-year-old Theron L. Hammersley, okay, sentenced in the U.S. District Court to 78 months in federal prison for transporting an individual from Ohio to Kentucky for purposes of engaging in prostitution in violation of the Mann Act. Carter M. Stewart, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Ohio, Joycelyn Samuels, Acting Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, and so on and so forth, other people enlisted. Hammersley was sentenced to serve 5 years under court. He was also sentenced to serve 5 years under court supervision after his release from prison. During that time, his computer use will be monitored. Hammersley was ordered to pay restitution and must register as an SEX offender if required in any jurisdiction. If required in any jurisdiction where he resides. Okay? So with that all being said, and this is someone who pleaded guilty. Okay, he actually pled guilty, so still got 78 months. Usually they say if you cooperate, the reasons you would get a light sentence is either you're a non-violent person, or you are a first-time offender, or you decide to cooperate. Okay, and the thing that Diddy has working against him is because absolutely the prosecution is going to bring up his violence. Now, here's the thing. They're going to bring up the violence, but I'm pretty sure the defense is going to bring up the fact that Diddy supposedly took some sort of program about his violence, and also the fact that he wasn't convicted of the violence. Okay, he wasn't convicted of that. Now, had he been convicted or charged with domestic violence and convicted of that, that would definitely be bad. But they're still going to try to use that against him. So this could go either way. We don't know. But if you ask me if the judge is being fair, and I don't think that the judge is going to be fair, quite frankly. The judge hasn't been fair this entire time. We've seen the racial elements being played out in the courtroom. We've seen how the judge was clearly, in my opinion, and many others, biased towards the prosecution. Just think about how on the day that the verdict came in, when the judge asked Diddy, Mr. Combs, you don't want to go back to MDC, do you? So let me go back here and see what I can do. Then Maureen Comey, the Karen, stands up and says, but Your Honor, he shouldn't be able to just go home. He's violent, he's done this and he's done that. She brings up all the stuff that he wasn't even charged with. And then the judge changes his mind, because it seems to me like the judge wants to kiss the ass of Maureen Comey. Now, that's just my opinion. Get mad if you want. Okay? That's what it seems like. Like he wants to kiss the boots or the ring of the prosecution. Now, I think that this judge is not very experienced. I don't think he's been on the bench very long. So with that all being said, I think that he looks to the prosecution to try to steer him or guide him in his decision making. That's what it seems like. Now, I could be wrong, but that's just what it looks like. Okay, so with that being said, I don't know how this is going to go. But if he were going by the letter of the law, then I would think that he should equal out Diddy's sentence fairly, okay, as has been done in many other cases. Okay, that's what I think. Okay, but that's just my opinion. Now, with that all being said, let's talk about what Judge Mathis had to say about Diddy's sentencing, and also Alan Dershowitz. I hope I'm saying his name right. I think that's his name. Jeffrey Epstein's attorney, Alan Dershowitz. Okay, here we go. I'm going to play this audio, and I'm going to put up an overlay. Like up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance.
The jury did the right thing and the judge did the wrong thing. Not surprising. I have more faith in juries than I do in judges. The jury acquitted Sean Combs of the most serious charges, RICO violations. He's not a racketeer. Sexual trafficking. He wasn't trafficking. He wasn't sending people to other people for money. He wasn't sending 12-year-olds, to do terrible things for a profit. What he did was pretty awful, and his lawyers admitted it. But he was convicted essentially of just sex for money, not even money. It's just transactional sex. He wasn't convicted of anything non-consensual. He wasn't convicted of sex with a minor. He was convicted. It's as if, the conviction is a guy from New York meets a woman in a bar and says, hey, I know a great restaurant in New Jersey. Let's go to New Jersey. And while he's in the process of going to New Jersey, having just, asked her to come with him, he has in mind that he's going to pay for a really fancy meal with a really nice bottle of wine, $500 bill, and then she's going to sleep with him. Yeah, that would violate the Mann Act. If you cross state lines for an immoral purpose. And an immoral purpose includes having sex transactionally, or if you offer somebody, look, if you have sex with me, I'm a rock star, I'm a producer, I'm a a rap person, but maybe I'll help you get a job. That's transactional sex. It treats the people who consent as not being adults. You don't have to accept it. You say no. I'm not going to take the job. But if you say yes, why is that a crime? It's not a crime. And so, in my view, this guy, who I sure wouldn't want him to date any of my friends, was convicted of something that's not a crime. 2 counts of interstate travel for immoral purposes, for purposes of engaging in prostitution. It wasn't even prostitution. It was, fancy living in exchange for sex. Look, he may have done other terrible things, but that's not what he was convicted of. And so this judge just now denied him bail. On what ground? This guy's not going to run anywhere. It's absurd. He has one of the nicest houses. I pass it by all the time. It's right near, not far from my little tiny condo in Miami, Florida. He lives on Star Island. His property is probably worth $40 or $50 million. I think he has 2 properties on the most expensive island, one of the most expensive islands in the world. He's one of the most recognizable people. This decision by this judge was just vindictive. He didn't like the verdict. He thought there should be a conviction. And so he's going to probably sentence him to a little bit of time in prison. He can't sentence him to a lot of time, but he'll probably sentence him to a little bit of time in prison, in excess of the year he's already spent for having had bail denied. And but he's going to do it. He's going to come up with some pretense. The appellate issues aren't good appellate. Yeah, they are good appellate issues. I can win this appeal. This is not a strong case. You don't get people convicted for consensual transactional sex. Moreover, what the jury saw was not traditional transactional conventional sex. It was videotapes of him beating up mercilessly his girlfriend. It's a terrible thing, but it's not relevant.
This is what Ivy League universities you can get into with a 3.6 GPA. 90%
to whether he crossed state lines. What's relevant to whether he crossed state lines is a picture of him going through the Holland Tunnel or the Lincoln Tunnel or some other George Washington Bridge. That's the crime. The crime isn't beating anybody. He wasn't convicted of that. He was acquitted of anything involving violence, anything involving racketeering, anything involving sexual trafficking, all of that. He was acquitted. The jury didn't believe beyond a reasonable doubt the prosecution's case. The judge may have, but the jury didn't. You're not the 13th jury, Your Honor. You don't get to decide that he's guilty if the jury decides he's not guilty. And you don't get to decide it implicitly by denying him bail or denying him time served for his sentence. People don't go to jail for transactional sex, for voluntary, consensual sex based on the hope of getting an advantage. There is no such law. Maybe there should be, but there isn't. I don't think there should be, but there isn't.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there, and I want you all to pay attention because I have to absolutely agree with everything that he said. And the judge did not like the verdict. That was apparent and evident to me. One thing that I did notice, and a friend of mine, we spoke about this at length. One thing that I noticed is that during Mark Agnifilo's very dramatic, compelling, and yet powerful closing argument, the judge was butthurt and bit out of shape, and he didn't like it. That's what it looked like. Because he was making faces. He looked like he was so annoyed. He looked like he was really bothered. Specifically when Mark said things like, oh, there's baby oil and Astroglide. Get him off the streets. Lock him up. And now the streets are safe. When he said those sorts of things. When he talked about Capricorn Clark, talking about mountain lions. Okay. And saying that there was a car chase, but the officer that was there at the scene didn't say anything about a car chase, and neither did Kid Cudi. Whenever Mark Agnifilo would crack a joke or make light of something that was done or said. He said, oh, Cassie. Cassie was just keeping it gangster. I looked right at the judge to see his reaction, and he didn't like it. He didn't like it. Okay. The judge was clearly biased. That's my opinion. Now, some people say that he was fair. Well, I think that he was pretending to be fair. You see, there were some things that he would do, and I felt like he was just doing it to make it seem as though he wasn't biased. But I could absolutely see his bias. I could absolutely see it. And if you had been sitting there in the courtroom, I'm pretty sure that if you were paying attention and looking with your third eye, then you would have seen it too. Okay. That's what you would have seen. So with that all being said, Black Ace says, great reporting. You and Sean G were the two best reporting on this. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. I appreciate your kind words. Okay. That judge was just feigning that he wasn't biased, in my opinion. Okay. VM said, thank you, Queen, pretending exactly what he was doing. There is no reason that Diddy should not have been given bail. Okay. The judge did exactly what the prosecution suggested that he do. He played to the prosecution the entire time. That's what he did. Okay. That's just a fact as far as I'm concerned. Okay. And so, now when it comes to the sentencing, well, I think that he's probably going to try to appease the prosecution yet again. Now, they have asked for 63 months, which is just a little over 5 years. And they've been asked to bring forth some cases and examples. I think the judge will probably go somewhere maybe in the middle, because I'm quite sure he doesn't want the ridicule of people like me saying that it was racially biased. I think he may not want people saying that, but then again, maybe he won't care. Okay, so we'll see how that goes. But let's hear what Judge Mathis had to say about the judge not giving Diddy bail. Okay, likes up, everyone, please like and share. I'm going to put this up on the screen. I'm going to put an overlay on here, so I don't need any copyright claims.
Holmes has been convicted of interstate transportation of prostitutes, the only two crimes I believed he committed. As I've said in the beginning, after the closing arguments, I thought that would be the only thing they would convict him of, and that is the case. And I'm going to respect the juror's decision. On the other hand, he's been denied bail. I'm not sure if that's fair for 2 counts of interstate transportation of prostitutes, tricking. And in that sense, precedent shows that it's 21 to 27 months, indeed the guidelines for each count of interstate transportation of prostitutes for first-time offenders.
Now I want you all to pay attention. Judge Mathis said it's 21 to 27 months. I believe I told you all 21 to like 30 months. Okay, so I was close, but I was doing my calculations based on Diddy's where he falls on the scale. Okay, but let's keep listening.
As such, the sentencing should be in conjunction with precedent and in conjunction with first-time offenders. I'll also talk more about this on the Mathis Verdict podcast, or the clips that we'll be showing of the podcast over the weekend, but certainly next week we'll be discussing in thorough the case and what I suggest the sentencing should be. So keep an eye out for us next week for a full analysis of this.
Okay, so now here is another clip of Judge Mathis when he was questioned by TMZ following the verdict and what he thought Diddy's sentence should be. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Let me put an overlay on here.
I want to know what you think about the outcome of the trial and the not guilty verdict for the RICO and the sex trafficking.
Well, I never thought there was a RICO case that they could present and win. Sex trafficking, that was questionable to me. I quite frankly didn't think it was sex trafficking, which the essence of is taking a woman by force or coercion to do something she otherwise wouldn't want to do, and doing it across state lines if it's federal. So I think that conviction was fair. On the other hand, I believe that the fairness should also indicate fair sentencing. And that's what we are looking to see what happens. And I just think the judge should consider the case and the conviction as he would anyone else. And that means first-time offenders, 21 to 27 months, whether he does it concurrently, the two convictions, or consecutively. That's his prerogative. Because, yes, is he dangerous to the community? I'm not sure at this point. Would he have gone after the witnesses? I don't know if he's learned his lesson. But what I also do know is that he needs help. Let's not overlook that. He needs help. Otherwise, he's going to do it again. I think they overcharged him. I think they overcharged him based on what we've seen and with our own eyes. Yeah. And that's why much my compassion goes toward what I saw with my own eyes, and that being Cassie being dragged and beaten. So I think that was the reason, is because it was so explosive, what was seen by the media and by the public. And so they acted accordingly. But you got to know that the federal government, they're about winning cases, and they throw the garbage can at you and see what's left with the jury.
Trump has mentioned that he is open to considering pardoning Diddy. What do you think about that? Do you think he should, or do you think Diddy should serve his time?
I think he should serve his time, however short it is. On the other hand, Trump, I don't think he'll do it before the midterm elections because he has to satisfy those Republican women. He has to account to them for his decision making as it relates to the next congressional election. Now, perhaps after that, meaning 3 years from now or last act leaving office, that's a possibility for sure.
A lot of people, they stayed silent throughout the trial, and now more people are coming out and, speaking up for Diddy. What are your thoughts on that? I've seen a few different people today speak out who haven't spoken before. And I'm curious what you think about that.
Well, I suggested that his loved ones should be allowed to come and show comfortable. I've heard murders cases when I was a sitting judge in Detroit. You always had the family come in and the close friends. They sit in even if they knew that the defendant, their relative and loved one, had committed the crimes. I think now they're jumping on the bandwagon. Perhaps they didn't have the courage to state what I stated.
All right, so you all heard that. That's what Judge Mathis said. And, I think he was being fair. Okay, so bottom line is the judge just needs to do the right thing, okay? And not be biased. And like Judge Mathis said, treat Diddy like he would treat anyone else. Okay, we all know that the feds hate to take a loss, but in this case, that's absolutely what they took. So they need to just get over it. Now, with that being said, the LW experience says, Queen, I also believe that the judge is biased. Absolutely, beloved. That's what I saw the entirety of the trial going on again and again and again. Okay? VM says, yes, Queen, you've been on point. Thank you. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Okay. El Hombre Negro says, give Diddy 21 years to rehabilitate him. Diddy been offending the laws dealing with that. No, that's your opinion, beloved. Okay. Let me read a few more comments before I roll out of here. Mark Jack said, not defending Puff in the hotel video, but let's say Cassie was trying to steal $20,000 from the room. Wouldn't that change the perception of the video a little? They still haven't told everyone. Yes, that would, because here's why. And I'm glad you brought that up. Now, I think we can all agree, okay, that in fact, this was, the video was extreme and it was very violent. But the bottom line is the prosecution lied. Okay, they lied and said that Diddy was dragging her back to a freak off to make her engage in a freak off. They say that Jules was in the room. Why didn't Jules testify? Why didn't we hear from Jules? If Jules was in that room when that was going on, why wasn't Jules called to testify to confirm that in fact Diddy was trying to drag her back for a freak off? Because the defense argues that they basically argued that Cassie was upset about a text message that came through on Diddy's phone that she saw. And that's why she got mad and left. Okay, so that's what they said. Now, Jules, if he was actually there, could have confirmed whether that was true or whether what the prosecution alleged was true. But surprisingly, the prosecution didn't call Jules. Okay. And then one could say, well, the defense didn't call him either. Well, the bottom line is the prosecution is the one who tried to link that videotape to the freak off. Okay. Which I don't think it had anything to do with the freak off itself. And we saw the full video in court. We all saw the full video. And in the full video, he did not drag Cassie back to that room. And that's a very valid point because at the end of the day, that's what the prosecution put out there from day one. They were painting a fictitious narrative. He didn't drag her back to the room. She left with security. Okay. And when she left, she could easily have called the police had she wanted to. All right. But no, she didn't. So that all been said, yeah, that video, in my opinion, should never have been entered as evidence because it didn't prove anything other than that Diddy can get upset and turn into a whole monster when he's doing these illegal substances. Okay. Other than that, now the prosecution is using that to keep Diddy from getting bail. They'll further use it to try to get him a more lengthy sentence. Okay. Than what he actually deserves. Because again, no matter what you think he did, even if you think he was guilty of the S trafficking and the RICO, the bottom line is he was acquitted of it. Okay. So that's more valid than any of our opinions. And the jury decided that, like I told you all long ago. Doesn't really matter what I think or even what you think. The bottom line is the jury is going to determine his guilt or innocence. And that's what they've done. And now because some people don't like the outcome, they want to go out and bash the jurors when they don't know. And it's really foolish and ignorant of them, like I said, because they don't even know what the sealed evidence was that the jurors actually saw. Now, we heard yesterday when I played for you the audio of Cassie going in on Sujit about a tape that she was supposedly in having relations with Who Kid, who, by the way, is 50 Cent's DJ. So that was one thing that the jurors saw. And when you listen to that audio, you can't tell me that when the jury heard that, they probably thought the same thing that we many of us were thinking, that Cassie was just a ho and was out there doing what she wanted to do. Okay. And doing these things behind Diddy's back. That's just what it is. And you can call it victim shaming if you want to, but at the end of the day, she was no victim. She was a victim of only domestic violence. As for the other things, Cassie and Jane Doe wanted to live a lavish lifestyle. They wanted to be draped in diamonds and pearls and minks. They wanted to have all sorts of, expensive handbags and go on fancy trips. They wanted to be near other A-list celebrities. And this was all proven in court as far as I'm concerned. I mean, when you have the fact that Jane Doe talked about having a freak off with other people, a whole nother rapper, when you talk about the fact that they said Cassie asked about who she'd date because Jay-Z's already taken, that should let you know her mentality right there. Okay, she was very manipulative. And also the fact that she dated all these other celebrities behind Diddy's back. I forgot about the NFL player that they said that she allegedly dated as well. And then when she dated Alex Fine, whom she's now married to, well, she still was after money. That's why she went and filed a civil suit against Diddy and the hotel. Okay? She didn't go to the police, is all I'm saying. You really want justice for yourself? If someone's brutalized you for years, traumatized you, trafficked you, given you copious amounts of illegal substances, which is another thing they tried to portray, as if Diddy is the one who got her on those illegal substances. How do they know she wasn't already doing rugs with a D before she met Diddy? How do they know that? They don't. They don't. These people will sit here and act as though Diddy introduced her to it. You know, they said the same thing about Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston. They said the same thing about Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston because, see, Bobby Brown was seen as the bad boy. Whitney Houston was seen as America's angel. But then, come to find out, certain sources have said that Whitney was the one who introduced Bobby to the rugs. Okay? So I'm just sorry. That doesn't fly with me. At the end of the day, what we do know and what they did say on the stand is that Cassie was stealing Diddy's rugs. She was stealing his. She said it herself. She was taking his substances. They both OD'd. They both had overdoses. They were in the throes of addiction, which is what made them toxic, which is what made them violent, and which is what made them a ticking time bomb. Okay, that could have gone off at any time. But at the end of the day, the way they tried to portray Cassie as being so fearful of Diddy, no, she wasn't. If she was so fearful of Diddy, she wouldn't have been daring to date these other men behind Diddy's back. That's what she wouldn't have been doing. Okay? And here's the thing. Think about this. Isn't Cassie the one who said that Diddy threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car? And then the car caught on fire, right? Here's a thought that nobody asked. If Cassie knew that Diddy had threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car, she's the one that said that. We don't know if she's telling the truth or lying. But at the end of the day, she said it, so it must be true, as far as some of her supporters are concerned, right? But let's just say that it was true. Well, here's the question. If she knew this man threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car, why was she still hanging out with Kid Cudi? Why was she still hanging out with Kid Cudi? Why didn't she tell Kid Cudi that Diddy said he was going to blow up the car? She wasn't afraid to go out with Kid Cudi and get into a car that might get blown up. Okay, I'm sorry. I have several questions. So did Diddy even ever really say that? And even when Diddy met up with Kid Cudi, and when they were leaving the meeting, and Kid Cudi said to Diddy, "What about my car?" Diddy was like, "What about your car? What are you talking about?" Was Diddy just faking like he didn't know? Or did he really not know? Okay. They said something about female DNA. Was it Kid Cudi's girlfriend? Because didn't they say he was cheating on somebody else's baby mom or his girlfriend with Cassie? Or messing with both of them at the same time? I have several questions, is all I'm saying. Okay? I have several questions. All right? Maybe Cassie got mad because he was dealing with her and the baby mom, because she is jealous. She already admitted to being jealous of Diddy and Kim Porter and Diddy and his other women like Gina. And in fact, what I also found interesting that nobody wants to bring up, Cassie said that Diddy was holding her career over her head and that Diddy blacklisted her and blackballed her. But didn't she claim to have done the same thing to Gina? Didn't we see that in the text messages? She said, "I already blacklisted her from any modeling or something like that." Didn't she say that? So she did the same thing to somebody else that she claims Diddy was doing to her. And y'all think this is just some sweet little old innocent victim? While she sat up there on the stand, rubbing her pregnant belly, holding a rosary, talking about her mind or her brain wasn't fully developed, and Diddy was her first adult relationship, which was all lies and BS. Okay? Which was all lies and BS. Cassie was a master manipulator, and that's just on facts. Okay? And even in Kim Porter's death, Cassie still was jealous when Diddy said at the funeral that Kim was his soulmate. She says, "Well, what were our 11 years? And also, by the way, and you can go look this up, reportedly some of Kim Porter's friends said that Cassie used to laugh at Kim, used to poke fun at her, okay? And would disrespect her right alongside Diddy. So I'm sorry, where are her supporters? And why aren't they talking about that? Okay, so with that all being said, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. At the end of the day, I hope you all enjoyed it. Drop me a comment to let me know what you think. And hey, if you didn't like the broadcast, that's fine. We don't have to agree. You can respectfully agree to disagree. But just know that if you say something nasty or rude in the comment section, you won't ever say it again. Or at least if you do, nobody's going to see it but you. Please pay attention. All right? Please pay attention. There's some people probably just going through here saying little nasty stuff and thinking that we all see it, but they just don't know they've been hidden from the channel. So the only ones seeing their comments are them. Okay? Little trick that I like to do every now and then. All right? So if you don't like what the queen is cooking, all you can do is exit stage left. So all I'm saying. Okay? So with that being said, Miss Sheila said, yes, I heard that too. She laughed at Kim Porter. Yes, she did. Absolutely. So I'm supposed to feel so sorry for her? Honey, please. Okay? That's why Diddy's children really never liked her or Little Miss Jane Doe. Okay? And I want to tell you all one more thing too before I roll up out of here. Now, there was a point on the stand when Cassie testified, and she said something about she sued because she wanted money. Okay? Because I think they brought that up. It was something about, and I don't want to misquote, but it was something about them asking her or her saying why she ended up suing with a civil suit. We all know it was for money. Why else would she do it? That's why she was trying to extort Diddy. Y'all want to talk about Diddy extorting her mom, okay, for that $20,000 that he wanted returned. But didn't Cassie extort him too? For 6 whole months telling his attorneys that if they didn't give her $30 million, she's going to write a tell-all book. Isn't that extortion? How is that any different? I want you all to pay attention to how these people paint narratives to make it look the way they want it to look, rather than just being honest. If Cassie says to Diddy and his attorneys, give me $30 million or else I'm going to write a tell-all book and expose everything. And then talks about she has pictures of her bruises. Well, what about when Diddy says, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to release the freak off videos? That's the same thing. How is it any different? It isn't any different. But people will sit there and go in on Diddy, but they won't say anything about what Cassie did. Okay? And that's because they're clearly biased. All right? Vince I Am says, great broadcast as always, Queen. Love you for life. And I love you for life too, beloved. Thank you for your kind words. So I just want you all to think about that. How people want to paint narratives and they just don't want to keep it a buck. And they don't want to be completely honest. Because at the end of the day, Cassie and Diddy, in my opinion, were two peas of the same pod. They were Bonnie and Clyde. And like Mark Agnifilo said it best, Cassie was just keeping it gangster. That's what she was doing. Okay? Please pay attention. With that all being said, I love you all to life. I hope you all enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives.
Gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunsa. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got